Hello everybody, this is Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein. Welcome to the Daily Derech, a special project of exploring Judaism, the United Synagogue of Conservative Judaism, the Rabbinical Assembly, and Temple of Aaron. Today is the third day after Shabbat Kodesh, the 22nd of Tammuz 5786, corresponding in the secular calendar to Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. We will read Parashat Matot-Masei this coming Shabbat. Let's begin. We're going to continue learning Parashat Matot-Masei, starting with the aliyot for the third aliyah of the triennial Torah reading. This is Numbers 30, verses 14 through 17. Those what we will hope to accomplish and learn today. Verse 14 goes like this. Kol neder vekol shvot isar lano nafesh isha yakimenu v'isha yifarenu. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict the soul, her husband may let it stand, or her husband may make it void. So all of a sudden, a new concept has been added in. We've been talking for the past 2 days about this idea of vows, and that vows are things in which we say a particular item is prohibited to us, and for the most part, in terms of men, as understood, of course, in the context of the Torah, once a man says one of these vows, once they're of age, nobody can cancel the vow except the rabbinic tradition of a patira, or a release of the vow from the sages themselves. But for a woman, of course, it becomes more complicated, because in the Torah tradition, it's understood that the wife is under the sort of dominion in some ways of first their father, and then once they become married, their husband. Now, understandingly, as I said in previous podcasts, I know we don't think this way anymore, but still it's important to learn this Torah and understand the logic behind it and what it means and what it is commanding us. So, in this particular vow, in this particular verse, we've learned a new concept, la'anot nafesh. This is specifically about an oath or a neder or a vow in which a woman forbids herself something that causes her pain, right? That causes her suffering. In this specific case, the verse says that a husband both can uphold that oath, or a husband could uproot it. Now, this at first seems like a repetition. Why is, again, it's saying that the husband can both uproot an oath or sustain it? Well, at least according to Rashi, what this means, and of course he's getting this from Masechet Nedarim itself, that the Baal, the husband, can only actually uproot a oath or a neder in the case where it causes the woman actual true suffering to not do it, right? That I'm not going to eat a certain food or something, right? That would cause her suffering, that she's not going to be able to eat that food. Those are oaths that on that day, at least, the husband can annul. But it seems like, according to the language of Rashi here, there are no other oaths that can be possibly uprooted. So this is refining very much this general idea that's, at first we thought the husband could sort of uproot any vow that's made that day, but actually only vows that hurt the woman who's making it. Now, according to the Rambam, Rashi spoke too quickly here, and actually also there's one more idea of a place where that the husband can step in the day and uproot the vow, and that's the case of something that affects the relationship between each other. For example, the wife saying, I vowed to never put on makeup again. I vowed to never look good, or I vowed to never engage in sexual relations, whatever it is, right? Those might not necessarily cause the woman herself affliction, but they certainly affect the relationship, the private relationship between two human beings, and so therefore the husband can uproot the vow that his wife is saying in those cases. But this significantly restricts the amount of vowing that can be made or restricted. Verse 15 continues with this concept and adds one more piece of data. Vim hacharish yacharish la'isha. But if her husband holds his peace at her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows, or all her bonds which are upon her. He confirms them because he held his peace at her in the end of the day that he heard them. Now again, this seems more repetition, but of course in all these things, Rashi and the rabbis will see a lot of deeper ideas in this. And what they draw to this is this unique expression, im hecharish yacharish la isha miyom el yom. Right? If her husband is quiet and doesn't uproot the oath, miyom el yom, from day to day. What this means, according to our rabbis of blessed memory, is that there is another way, there's another sort of condition on the husband being able to uproot the oath. Usually the normal way, that it's defining that this is not a 24-hour day, right? You can actually read this idea and say, okay, he has the entire day. So the man has 24 hours to annul the oath once the oath has been heard from the woman. But this is saying yom el yom, which actually means by sunset. So a man can only annul a woman's oath once sunset hits. So it's already reducing this by almost 12 hours. So it's putting a limit here as well on this. But the limits are not over. This is not the only limit that is sort of made here. V'im hafer yafer otam achrei sham'o v'nasa et avona. But if she should annul them after he has heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. So we also understand from this, let's not go to that next verse for a second. Let's still focus on verse 15 here. This extra word also, if he confirms them, hekimotam, if he somehow upholds them. So there is this also idea, that according to the rabbis as well, that either an oath that is made by a woman becomes permanent if either sunset occurs, or at the time by which the husband actually confirms the oath. So if the husband hears the oath and says, yes, this is an oath that I'm okay upholding, then even if the woman then later retracts what she says later on, then even if it's before sunset, still she can't retract it because the husband's already confirmed it. Even in the case in which the husband then after the fact agrees and says, yes, you should take back this oath. I know I confirmed it, but I didn't mean to, and it's still not sunset. The husband himself can't take back the uprooting, and the oath becomes an oath. Once the husband confirms the oath, it becomes a permanent oath. And that's what our sages believe. This verse 16 said, Im hefer yafero tamach reishamo v'nasa et avona. If he should annul them after he has heard them, then he shall bear her iniquity. Right, so here, and that's the idea here of bearing her iniquity, right? He's sort of causing her to sin in this way. Usually the way it's thought of is maybe she doesn't, when he says, oh, it's okay, you don't have to do it, since he doesn't have the actual power to do that because he's already confirmed it, the wife might then think, oh, well, the vow has been annulled, and so therefore I don't have to do it, and then, which of course causes her to sin, and then the iniquity is not on the woman but on the man because he's the one who caused to confuse her. Rashi draws out a larger idea of this, that anytime you cause a person to sin, the sin is not theirs, but it's yours. You have to take responsibility for it. So very, very important. The last line sort of sums up everything. These are the statutes which the Lord commanded Moshe between a man and his wife, between the father and his daughter, being yet in her youth in her father's house. After this, with this, we finally finish all of the psukim in this particular parsha on vows. We'll get to a new topic tomorrow. The laws of Kriat Shema, the laws of the recitation of the Shema. We're going to continue learning about these laws of the Shema. We're in the 3rd chapter. We're going to learn the 6th and the 7th halacha today. We're going to talk about poop today, poop and pee. Specifically, can we recite the Shema in the presence of poop and pee? Now, this might sound like a ridiculous question, but it actually is a real live question. Number one, those of us who have young children who have diapers, right? They might have smelly diapers or non-smelly diapers. Can we recite the Shema next to them? We also might have dogs. Sometimes there's small dogs who poop and pee on like pee pads. And so the question is, can we recite the Shema when there might be actually poop and pee nearby in which they made on their pee pad? So the question is, can we recite the Shema in these cases? Obviously, we also can talk about hospital situations or older adults who might have incontinence issues. Can we recite the Shema in their presence as well? So very actually important questions that do come up. So we're gonna talk about today, because we want to talk about practical halacha, and it really is beautiful, of course, how halacha touches on every area. So here the Rambam goes. The Shema may not be recited in the presence of human feces, or in the presence of dog or pig excrement while skins are soaking in it, or in the presence of any other feces like these that have a foul odor. This is also the case regarding human urine, but not animal urine. Okay, so what is he saying here? I read that sentence relatively quickly, but he's saying in general we can't recite the Shema in the presence of human feces. Why? It's because human feces, for the most part, smell really bad, right? And this is something, if you're around human feces, even if of small people, you know that they smell pretty bad. And that's what we're really concerned about, is the smell of the feces that's going to interrupt the davening. But we see that there's something different with dog or pig excrement. Specifically said it's only forbidden to recite the Shema around them when skins are soaking in them. This is actually a process by which leather is made, and often this makes it smell when skins are soaking in it. But in general, oftentimes dog excrement itself doesn't smell, and so if it doesn't smell, there actually isn't really a problem of reciting the Shema next to it. So this answers the question of, if you have a small dog that might poop or pee on a pee pad and it doesn't smell at all from the little bit of poop that's there, it actually doesn't. You can still recite the Kriat Shema. You can still recite Shema nearby. So very, very important. And same thing too here with human urine. Most of the time, human urine doesn't smell, right? So not a big deal unless, of course, you have that foul odor. But of course, animal urine, there's a little bit of a disagreement on animal urine here. We're not going to talk about that as much today. But again, usually a good quality for just understanding these laws. If it smells, you can't recite the Shema next to it. You can't do that. Can't smell like it at the time. So very important. So just to continue on here, let's go to the 7th halacha. One may not recite the Shema next to feces, even if they are dry as a shard, right? We know that if poop gets very old and very hard, right, then it doesn't smell any longer. So what's the point in which you can sort of pray next to it? And the Rambam has a very, sort of serious sort of level, very machmir, very stringent with this, that even when it's dry as a shard, so something very, very, very dry, and what we mean here by shard is the Hebrew's cheresh, like a clay pot, right? Even if it's that hard, right, we still can't pray next to it. However, if it was so dry that if thrown away, they would crumble, it's like almost like it becomes earth itself, then we can actually recite Shema next to it. I think what's being said here is that it's not really feces anymore at that moment. And this is specifically, it really has to crumble. It can't just be something that breaks into two pieces. If you threw a clay pot, it wouldn't shatter. It would just break into two pieces. It would crack, versus something that would crumble. It's sort of a different status is said here. If urine that has been soaked up into the ground is still sufficiently wet to moisten one's hand, the Shema should not be recited facing it. If it has dried sufficiently, the Shema may be recited. So he actually says here that the Shema can, if the pee is wet and you're sort of looking at it, you can't recite the Shema. And so you at least have to not be looking at it, right? Because pee doesn't usually smell here. So as long as you look away, you can recite the Shema. But if you're looking at it, you can't. Once it's dried sufficiently, of course, you can recite the Shema next to urine as well. Menorat HaMaor. We're going to continue learning this section on the afflictions of the whole society together in preparation for during this 3 weeks period when we're supposed to be mourning the temple. And remember, we're still talking about the greatness of man, before we could talk about the meaning of their suffering, we have to understand their greatness. And we've been talking about the idea that really the reason for the creation of human beings was for the sake of the righteous themselves, right? That's God's sort of dream, God's vision is the righteous person. So everything was created for the sake of the righteous person. And that's really where we begin here. Rabbi Barachia said, "At the moment when the Holy One, blessed be He, was about to create the first human being, He foresaw both the righteous and the wicked who would descend from Him." And so we see that God is about to create human beings, and He understands that both there's going to be righteous people, there's going to be wicked people. And He really has a conundrum. He said, if I create him, meaning if I create man, then wicked people will arise from him. But if I do not create him, how will the righteous come forth from him? So the idea is that God doesn't want the wicked people. God creates humanity for the sake of the righteous. But if you're going to create humanity, you get wicked people no matter what. And the only people to get righteous people is to also get wicked people. So what is God to do? All right, it's kind of a conundrum. And I guess what's interesting here is the implicit idea that, like, why can't God just say, well, I'm going to create a humanity that's good, right? Like, I'm just not going to create wicked people. Right? If God can really do anything, why can't God say that? And I think implicit in this idea is that, like, free will is something God can't really touch. God can't actually create righteous people. God can only create human beings. It's then human beings' choice whether they're going to act righteously or wickedly. So this is something that's outside of sort of God's power in this regard. Either, depending on your theology, God chooses not to do this, or God can't do this, right? It's not part of the MO, not part of the package. So very important. One of the few things that God can't control in this world is if a human being chooses to do righteousness or not. So what did the Holy One, blessed be He, do with this? He removed or put out of his consideration the way of the wicked from before him, associated his attribute of mercy with the act of creation, and created him. So God just said, what the hey, and created humanity, right? And said, you know what, I'm just not going to look at the wicked right now. I'm just going to put them out of my mind for a second, because again, like, what really matters is the righteous, and I'm going to focus on that moment. And God created the world with mercy and compassion and said it's still worth it. Even with these wicked people, it's still worth having them if that means we have the righteous people. They're really important. And so I think this is also important for us to embody as being human beings who try to embody God's image, right, and try to copy God's acts as the main way of devekut, of clinging to God, as being the ways in which we try to cling to how God thinks and God acts, by saying us too, right? There are lots of wicked people in this world. It's true. Right? That does not disqualify the righteous, and still the righteous are way more important than the wicked. Those are who we should be focused on and be thankful for. Often we do the opposite. As human beings, often we get very jaded and cynical and really just focus on the people who are doing wrong. Hey, that's how the newspapers work and the media works, right? Focus on what people are doing wrong. But actually, God wants us to do something different. God wants us to focus on the righteous, and that's what God does at this moment. This is what the verse says in Psalms 1:6, "For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish." That's a famous verse, sort of the end of Psalm 1 here, first Psalm, that God knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked shall perish. It's kind of a weird thing. You would expect saying, but God knows the way of the righteous, but doesn't know the way of the wicked. But it's not what it says. So what is this shall perish, toved, here in Hebrew? So it means that he caused it to disappear before him. So it actually is, Psalms 1:6 is referring to that exact moment when God created man and God said, what the hey, I know there's going to be wicked people in the world, but it's still worth it for the sake of these righteous people who are created it, because, again, the world is created for the sake of the righteous. And I think this should show us, again, how powerful, how important it is the righteous people in this world, to draw close to them, to admire them, to try to become like them. Even when the world abounds with wickedness, even a couple of righteous people make the world worth it. This is a great way of trying to be like God, by thinking this way. Well, that's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Daily Derech. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email me anytime at rmr@templeofaaron.org.
Thank you so much for listening. There are so many people to thank, and you can look in the show notes for that. And also, if you want to know and see any of these texts in the original, we actually have that too. You can actually find that in our episode description. So look in each of the episode descriptions and you'll find that information right there. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.